We are here today to listen to some of those young people and to create change through action. Today, you'll hear from members of Sandy Hook Promise's National Youth Advisory Board, a group of high school students across the country dedicated to preventing violence by empowering young people to create change in their schools and communities. We've taken commonly asked questions from audience members like you, and we'll be asking our speakers to answer them. We will end with some key actions that you can take immediately. Our speakers today are Diyuthi Kumar from California, Jordan Lewis from North Carolina, Medha Kishore from Ohio, Aylin Burns from Connecticut, Joelle Morales from New Jersey, Noor Sumro from Texas, and Drew Lansaw from Florida. So without further ado, we'll start our town hall with a brief spoken word from Diyuthi.
Hello, everyone. I just had a few words to share in light of some events over the past couple of weeks. It is easy to give up. There is a strange solace in isolation and a bleak safety in submission. A comfort in darkness when all else is amiss. What it is what you make, but the biggest heartbreak is that we didn't do enough, and the mistakes made were mistakes impermissible. Yesterday's gone, the clock is irreversible, and getting back what was lost is impossible. And whatever could be left to do when breathtaking potential becomes a heart-wrenching, I miss you. It's a loss which questions if there's anything left to be done, which scrapes at your soul and makes you realize that the climb has just begun. But climb we must, and climb we do, because it is our actions as much as our grief that will say we remember you. It will be our compassion in the face of apathy, our steadfast shifting of institutions through determined advocacy. And if grief is simply love that we never got to give, then we'll pass it on to the next generation, to the kids who will live. All may be amiss, but what is today does not have to be what is, and there is courage in letting go of yesterday's what ifs and wondering instead of today's what if. There may be solace in isolation, but there is greater strength in our crowds. There is safety in submission, but that's something we'll no longer allow. And we're sitting in darkness, but we're sitting together, and at the end of the horizon, we can see it. There is a glimmer of something better. We can see it in our parents, siblings, neighbor, and friend, cornering conglomerates in courtrooms, no longer allowing them to pretend that they are blameless, never allowing their loved ones to go nameless. We can see it in our kids taking the cards they've been dealt and letting them burn on the cusp of self-discovery, but having already learned that change will come not from lines and their following, but in their breaking and redrawing. So with each flower we lay down on gray remembered stone, we'll plant a million others in our towns and home. Through the fractures in these foundations will grow roses from concrete. Their stories and ours still remain incomplete. Thank you.
Thank you, Diyuthi. And to all of you who are listening in, I hope you carry those words forward with you into the rest of this conversation and what comes beyond as well. I'm going to move into our conversation, our town hall now. One of the first questions we have, which I'll pose to Jordan and Medha. It's been an especially trying week and couple of weeks, especially as you all are getting towards the end of the school year, some of you towards graduations, proms, and what's coming next. After Uvalde and after the tragedies that continue to strike, how are you, your friends, and your classmates feeling? And what types of conversations are you having?
So I'll go first. I know just for my friends and then me as a whole, and I think everyone around me, we're all really heartbroken that something like this has happened, that another tragedy, another showing of gun violence has happened. We're in shock that it happened, that there were there were parents that went home that day without their kids, that thought they were sending their kids to school that day and they were going to come back home safely, and that didn't occur, that there were 2 adults that were killed when they thought they were just going to go for another normal day at work, but they did not return home. We're confused as to why it's happening again, because as we said before, these kind of acts are preventable, but we're just confused as to how we have seen so many acts of gun violence, yet nothing has been done, and yet it has happened again. One thing that my Save Club at home is doing, we're going to have a circle up on Wednesday after school, and we're going to try and discuss solutions. We're going to talk about the shooting, and we're just going to try and discuss solutions to gun violence because, again, it is preventable. But I think after this huge shooting that's happened and all the previous ones that we've had, we're all just kind of confused and heartbroken, and we think that something needs to be done.
Echoing what JJ said, basically, we're feeling a sense of hopelessness and devastation because it seems like every day there's one or another school shooting that claims the life of innocent people. And unfortunately, this shooting claimed the lives of beautiful, innocent, and pure children. We're also fearful because gun violence has become the #1 cause of death in teens and children, according to the news, in 2020. And that's a very incomprehensible statistic. Basically, there's just this pondering question of whether, like, are the cries of the families that have lost their children in this shooting and in shootings preceding this, and are the words that we as youth speak to initiate change, are they going to go in vain? Or are they just going to be headlines on a news channel and without any government action or without any responsible leaders taking action to ensure the security and safety of our nation? Basically, will anyone step up to make this country safe? And those are pondering questions, and we're just all confused. But however, we're at the same time, me and my peers, we're hopeful because we know that there's always a silver lining to every problem. And so basically, we're confident that until that silver lining is found, organizations such as Sandy Hook will continue to support and advocate for the victims and the victims' families of these shootings. So basically a mix of emotions.
Thank you both for sharing that. And I think that's something that a lot of folks share with you as well. Of course, you all are here, transitioning into our next question here, because you are youth leaders, and you all have been involved as a youth leader within Sandy Hook Promise for the last few years. So this question is for Noor and Drew. I wanted to give you a little, an opportunity to talk about why this particular issue is important to you. So from your perspective, why is it important for young people to get involved in gun violence prevention?
Sure. So I definitely think that youth are the future. We are the ones who should be actively engaged in our own safety. We are the ones who are definitely living and experiencing the reality of school shootings. And it's so important to fight for what is right regarding our sense of safety, especially since we're all like students. We all have to go to school, and we should have the right of feeling safe in an environment where it's made for us to learn and to increase our own knowledge. And I definitely think that gun violence can really leave a traumatic impact on youth. And that's why it's so imperative that we have the ability to step up and make our voices heard. I know for all of us, we've grown up in an age of school shootings, and our sense of safety has definitely been impacted. Like, I'm sure like we've all gone through, like we've grown up with active like lockdown drills. When we get into a classroom, we like look at where our exit could be. Definitely school shootings have negatively impacted our learning environment for sure. And since gun violence is a national problem, youth all over the country can step up and help create tangible change in order to make schools a safer place to be.
So I think it's essential that young people get involved when it comes to prevention of gun violence, because after these tragedies, we hear on the news from newscasters, we hear from congressmen, we hear from teachers, but really the ones that are the most affected and the ones that tend to be the most victims are the students. So when these students and these young people speak up, when their voices are heard, everybody listens. That's who everyone wants to hear from. And those voices are echoed across the country. When students are able to get their voices out, people listen and they take action based on what they hear, because they know that students are restricted in how they can take action. We don't have a vote and things like that. So it kind of creates a ripple effect when students are able to get their voices out. And then, of course, when students get involved at this stage in their life, when they're still students and they're still young, as they grow up, they know exactly what they want to demand. When they're thinking about how these policies affect them and how these actions affect them, when they grow up and they become adults, they know exactly what they want to see for their future. And of course, the people that are most impacted by these shootings and these school occurrences are the ones who should have the most say. So the policies that are being set now are what will affect us in the future. These are things being set that will impact us for the rest of our lives, just like how the things that have been passed in the past few years are what are affecting us now. So even though some of us don't have the right to vote and most of us don't because we are under the age of 18, we have to take advantage of all the other opportunities we have that much more to make it count. And then once we turn 18, we know exactly how to make our voices heard.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's absolutely true that young people are affected in a very unique way by this issue. And, you know, your call to action is certainly one that'll be important for all of us. And at the same time, you're not just calling folks to action, you're also demonstrating what it looks like. And many of you are doing work on the ground actively to prevent the next school shooting or prevent the next act of victimization in your communities. So this question is for Joel and Aylin. Joel and Aylin, for folks who are new to Sandy Hook Promise and new to our youth leadership structure. I want to shine a spotlight on the work that you and other young people are doing to create safer communities. I think we certainly heard that there are a lot of things that adults in our country's leaders need to do to really step up and put some things into motion. And at the same time, you all are doing the hard work to prevent school shootings and violence every day just by showing up and with the work that you're doing with your clubs. So what have both of you done in your school or community that has made you and your classmates feel empowered?
So I have been a part of SAVE, which stands for Students Against Violence Everywhere. It's a club at my school and along with other schools that really focuses on aspects such as like mental health or going up to a trusted adult. And we use the Start with Hello and Say Something programs from Sandy Hook Promise. This year, my club really focused on showing people how to reach out to trusted adults and how to reach out to people in the school if they need, and even if they see someone exhibiting warning signs or threats or anything like that. One of the ways we've done this is through our anonymous reporting system, which our school has an anonymous reporting system, but a lot of people didn't know about it. So our club we met with administration. We thought of ways to promote our anonymous reporting system, which is district-wide, through videos, social media. We gave classroom presentations on our anonymous reporting system, how to use it, also how to reach out to a trusted adult. We presented to the trusted adults, which are like the teachers and other faculty in our building, on how to be a trusted adult for your students and what to do if a student goes up to you and if they say something to you, how to respond and how to help them and how to go up to administration or something like that. And we also gave signs to all the teachers to put in their classroom, encouraging students to reach out to them. And yeah, those are just some of the ways that our SAVE Club has been working in our school and our community and is making youth feel empowered in our school.
So yeah, our Save Promise Club has done many similar things to Joelle's. If you do not have a Save Promise Club, I would definitely start one because personally, that's like one of the biggest things that makes me feel empowered. One of the specific things we do through Sandy Hook Promise is running Start with Hello Week, which I think is really empowering because you can see a clear change in the school climate. People are a lot more positive, a lot more welcoming, and there's a lot less isolation. So one of the specific things we do is we have positive messages around the school. Our club got like some sticky notes together, and then other people within our school also started hanging sticky notes to like give to their friends if they were having a bad day. And then we also use name tags just to start with hello and meet new people. And this really just fights isolation and helps people within the school feel a lot more supported. And then for Say Something Week, we educate ourselves and then teach others about background checks and warning signs and why they're important to know. We also have an activity where we have people pledge to say that they will say something, which is really empowering to see in the school. And we also focus on self-care because not only is it important to educate others and start learning about how you can help, but it's also important to take care of yourself and to know the signs so you know what to look for. And like Joelle, our school also started an anonymous reporting system. Personally, I think it's a really good thing to have in every school because students are more likely to speak up if they see a problem or they're struggling or they know someone who may need help. And it's also just a good thing to have in place as a support system and to teach your school certain things. And then also speaking to teachers about how to be a trusted adult and reporting is something that our school did this year, because as we teach students what to speak up for and what needs to be reported, we also need to teach teachers like what they need to do and what their part in the process is. And then basically all of this helps me feel empowered and my club empowered because it prevents violence by like tackling certain problems before they have to reach the level of violence. So we want to prevent it before certain actions have to progress to that.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure there's so much other stuff that you're doing as well, but thank you for highlighting what that looks like on the ground and why these violence prevention programs are so important to you. Of course, there are so many solutions that we have to prevent gun violence, to keep students safe, to keep schools safe. Transitioning to our next question here, this one is for Diyuthi and Noor. One of these solutions, of course, that's on the table is policy and legislation that can prevent gun violence and keep young people safe. There are many options and many solutions on the table at both the federal and the state level, everything from expanded background checks to secure storage to expanding violence prevention programs. Of course, as Drew mentioned, many of you are under the age of 18, so you're not yet ready to vote, but can you talk a little bit about why engaging in policy issues matters to you?
Hi, yes. So, in our schools, I think starting kindergarten, first grade, we start teaching our kids Pledge of Allegiance, and we cultivate within them this pride in our nation, its democracy, its commitment to all people. And over the past couple of years, and I think certainly now, faith in those principles is wavering. I think there's a lot of talk, and for valid reasons, about how it's impossible to get anything passed or make impactful change through our government institutions. And I think events like Sandy Hook Promise, Parkland, Uvalde, they serve as really devastating reminders that we cannot think this way. The price of accepting things as they are is too high and it is unacceptable. And I think one of the really fantastic things about the organization that is Sandy Hook Promise is that we really recognize that gun violence isn't a single problem issue. There's not one single thing that causes it, and therefore there is no single issue solution. One change is not going to fix it. We need the mental health support and empathy training and recognizing science programs that more and more schools are adopting every day. We need to reduce the sorts of trauma that pushes people to perform horrific acts, but inevitably there is going to be an individual who slips through the cracks. And in cases like that, we need to make sure that other prevention is in place to deter an individual who is in crisis and needs support, not a firearm. And so the policy solutions that Sandy Hook Promise supports, expanding background checks, sales of assault weapons, ERPOs, et cetera, they are not perfect, but they are researched, evidence-based prevention that we can all get behind to protect our communities. There needs to be a complete culture change, I think, and to do that, we need to utilize policy.
Definitely bouncing off of what Diyuthi said, but I think also policy matters because it's our chance to step up and let the adults in leadership know that we want change and we want our sense of safety in school to be regained again. And then just so programs that Sandy Hook supports, like violence prevention programs such as Start with Hello and Say Something Week, I personally have seen like our school's community just be so much more open and welcoming. So for our Start with Hello week, we did name tags where everybody in our classes in our school, wore name tags, and it just made everybody so much more welcome, so much more opening, and it gave everybody like a little conversation starter because you could just go easily start a conversation, and nobody was so scared to be alone because everybody's wearing name tags. For Say Something Week, we actually had over about 70% engagement with our school. And so we basically did Know the Signs training where we educated the like schools and classes about recognizing the warning signs and how to like effectively deal with that. We did signing banners, so we got the whole school during lunches to come up and like we taught them like say something, if you see something, say something. They signed their banner, and there was just a lot of like engagement with that, which I thought was really fun. And I think at the end of both weeks, we definitely saw a like shift in our school. We saw people more like empathetic, more welcoming. There wasn't like more cliques anymore. It was more of a sense where everybody is here to be welcome. And it was definitely a very opening, welcoming community. And I definitely think that the state and federal policies can support these programs, and it can get them to a wider audience in order to engage a larger amount of people and help educate more students so that they can also feel the effects that we felt. And that way every student has that chance to be in such a great and welcoming environment.
Thank you both. So it's certainly a combination of all of those things. And like we said, just scratching the surface, but policy is really important for everybody to get engaged with, including young people, in addition to the programs that can help support the inclusive school environments that we're looking for as well. We want to talk a little bit about action here now too. I know many folks in the audience are joining because they want to know what they can do. They want to know what actions they can take, and they want to hear your perspective on what that is. So like we've mentioned and discussed, you all are doing so much, and you've given so many great examples of what this work really looks like in practice and what prevention looks like. And there's a lot for adults to do to step up to create that change as well. So this question is for Jordan, Maida, and Noor. For the audience members who are adults here, who are parents, teachers, educators, community members, what would you ask adults to do to support you and help you feel safe?
So yeah, one thing that I would ask adults to do is just to listen to us and give us the space to have that conversation with them, to understand that though it might not though it might not affect them directly, that it's something that we have to deal with the reality of every day, that it's just kind of, I think just for me, it's just kind of like normalized that in the first week of school, we need to do all these lockdown drills, and that kind of thing should not be normalized. It's not okay. It's just kind of like the constant fear, because I know I have a twin sister, so our bond is kind of close because, you know, we're technically like the same person. And so I know for me, it's just like that constant fear, because sometimes we're not always in the same place. We don't always have the same classes. So it just kind of makes you think, well, if I end up in a situation where like this, where an active shooter's in the building, how am I supposed to know she's okay if she is not there? Because I think for me, losing like my twin, that would probably break me. And it's just kind of that fear, and that fear should not be a situation that I have to imagine for myself. And so I think one thing that adults can do is just maybe kind of open up the conversation to open up the route to have a conversation with your kid. If you have a kid, maybe have a conversation with them. Maybe talk to people in your community, city councils, town councils, anything like that, and maybe try and organize like a event where you can have youth on a panel talking about how their experiences and how they think that you could help, kind of make it personal within your community, because it's going to look different for every community, but just making the change, just kind of have an open space for you to talk about it. That's the most important thing, because we're the ones who are directly affected by things like this, and when we're in our schools. So we're just asking that y'all listen to us and that we're able to have conversations with you, because I think that once the adults can listen to the youth and they can say, I understand that, and I'm glad that you're sharing that with me, because something now needs to be done. When you can hear that firsthand perspective, I think that will kind of resonate with them more and understand that, yes, it might not have been your kid in the shooting. That's okay. It might not have been your kid, but if we don't take action now, then the possibility could be that it could affect you directly next, where somebody you know, or maybe even your kid could be in that situation next, and that's not something that anybody wants. So I think that just listening so that we can take action, that's one thing that adults can do, and I think that it would impact us greatly.
So definitely echo what you said. So each time a major tragedy occurs, the parley is focused on addressing the specific venue. Basically, it's clearly understood that unfortunately these deaths are a predictable outcome of our country's lack of political will and underinvestment in prevention approaches that work. So adults can definitely help turn the tables by doing the following: preventing the imminent risk of fatalities through sensible gun laws, like banning access to high capacity magazines and assault weapons, creating extreme risk protection orders, requesting universal background checks without loopholes, and reducing firearm access to domestic abusers and or individuals with prior violent convictions. Also holding, personally, I think holding gun industries accountable to a code of conduct. And also there's basically a need to repeal gun industry immunity laws in states that have them. Community wise, I think what adults can do is being aware of your surroundings and being alert of any unusual or odd behavior. Do not like shrug off your instincts just because you might know that person. Don't be like, oh, what will that person think if I report this? No, go with your gut instinct, because that's definitely one of the warning signs. And then also like JJ said, hosting community gatherings to advocate for the mental health, especially the mental health of youth, advocating for counseling and helping to create more safe promise clubs. Kids, I know like there are a lot of parents right now that are like, how am I, like, I'm just gonna hold off on talking to my kid because they're so young. I'm scared that this topic's gonna be frightening with them. But honestly, don't delay it. I mean, I know it's scary, but the more you have these conversations with your kids, the more they're gonna talk to you about potential warning signs. Because I know there are lots of warning signs on social media, especially since this is a generation that uses social media to its fullest extent. Really encouraging your kids to be open with you, open to school authorities, and telling you if they see anything wrong. So definitely adults can open that barrier that might lead to potential tragedies.
So something I definitely think that adults are able to do is definitely, just like Jordan said, is to listen to youth, uplift their voices, and like Maida said, in order to help facilitate changes in policy levels, like in on all levels, like state, federal, local, learn from our voices and our experiences in order to help prevent these school shootings from occurring again. I think we don't want another generation to grow up with school shootings like being so normalized like we have right now. And that's why it's also so imperative that adults that are here, you guys are able to vote. So it's so like imperative that you guys use your vote, register to vote, and also call a legislator and just voice your concerns about expanding your own background checks, expanding access to mental health and suicide prevention for young people. And then another thing that adults can definitely do, especially teachers, or really just any adult in the community, is support a SAVE Club at your child's school or at a school near you, and become trusted adults for the community. I have personally seen the effect that SAVE Clubs have had on our community, especially since we had a school shooting threat this year. And I've just seen how our SAVE Club has just like empowered all of us to help create more change and create like a safer environment at our school as well because of that. And it's just also really important that adults are able to become a trusted adult for the community so that they're able to foster an environment of just kindness and compassion. That way, if a student sees something and they don't know who to turn to, they have a trusted adult that they can turn to in order that situations can be resolved or they can get the help they need. And then just to end off, I would also just like to implore to adults to be sensitive about the situation. I think that school shootings are very, very heartbreaking, especially to adults and to youth. And we don't want to let another one like happen again. So just be very sensitive with handling this, but also like just ensure that when you speak to like youth and everything, that you're ensuring that we're trying to make change occur. And just, yeah, just tend to be sensitive. And
Thank you so much. I think that's an excellent challenge to all of our adult listeners, folks who are tuning in today. There are multiple avenues, just as there are multiple solutions that you all have talked about. There are multiple points of engagement. And it's important for people to pick that up wherever they resonate the most. Of course, we have a lot of folks who are your peers who are listening in today too, fellow Safe Promise Club members or other young people. And while there's certainly a lot for adults to do, there are things that young people can do as well to become active in their schools and communities. So for Joelle, Aylin, Drew, and Diyuthi, our final question here is, what can young people do to become agents of change in their schools and communities?
I think that even though it is difficult, as like Drew was saying earlier, we can't vote and it is difficult, there is still a lot we can do. I think the most important and most impactful thing that youth can do, including myself right now, is really just to use our voice for change. Have conversations with, whether that's friends or family or trusted adults. Even though they might be difficult conversations, these conversations need to be held. It's important to reach out to trusted adults if you see warning signs or threats or something that you don't think is right. It's important that you reach out to a trusted adult or say something, because that is one of the that's one of the most important and one of the best ways that you can create change. If you say something when you see something, you can also, even though you can't vote, you can also encourage your family or family friends or other people who can vote. You can also encourage them to vote for people who support violence prevention methods and other policy like that. Social media, even use your voice on there, share ways that you can use your voice, ways that you can create change and other youth can also create change. Work with a Safe Promise Club. If you don't have one, try starting one, because they're one of the best ways to create change. And I even saw that in my school this year. And there's a lot that you can do, but I think the most important one for me personally is to just use your voice in whatever way you can. Even though it may be difficult, it's important that you use your voice.
So adding on to what Joelle was talking about, the biggest thing for me that I would say is just to get involved. I know that we're just like students and we don't have the ability to vote, but there's so many different ways that you can get involved. You can educate yourself. That's one of the biggest things about what certain like laws your like local government may have or state government and what change you can make. Also, educating your friends is really powerful, because as you spread throughout your school, it's better to have more people banded together. And then again, starting a Safe Promise Club if you don't have one, because personally, that's one of the biggest ways that I'm able to make a difference and fight for change. And like Joelle was talking about, using our own voice, because with all of this tragedy that's like directly affecting students right now, the biggest thing that we can do is take the tragedy and turn it into action. We want a change, we need a change. So I think it's really important to get involved and step up. Also, it's important to foster inclusion and just like learning and teaching other students about warning signs, because this way you'll have multiple people looking for warning signs and it's just like a better supportive community. Also, what to report with like anonymous reporting systems, as I was talking about before, it's really important to just be looking for the signs so that we can get involved from the school level to hopefully prevent these things from getting bigger. And then starting the conversation, as Joelle was talking about, it's very important to start the conversation, even though it's not really an easy one. It's a really important one to have. And then also looking for opportunities to speak up and share opinions, because this is really important. As you can get your voice out, you can get your friends' voices out. It's really important to share the student voice and the student perspective, as we are the people who are being affected the most with these things, and also starting communications and getting involved at school. After you get involved at the school level, it's important to expand to the whole community and then keep expanding. And then also by utilizing all the Sandy Hook Promise resources that are provided to us, it's just really important to get involved and do our part.
I think young people are in a situation where they have to speak up and make it clear what they want their future to look like. It's not enough to just sit as an individual and make a change like that. We have to come together kind of as a generation. And as we grow up and we decide what the world is going to look like, we have a clear image of the things we need to get done, the things we need others to get done, and what we want the end goal to be. So the more young people that advocate, share with their families and friends, spread the word, the faster this culture will shift. A big part of this culture is being part of a generation where we don't just let things slide. In almost every tragedy, there was some warning signs ahead of it. Imagine if every single tragedy someone had spoken up about that warning sign, and we wouldn't need an organization like this because they wouldn't happen in the first place. So as we grow up and we become the people in leadership, we have to make sure that we are united despite anything, and we determine what we want our future to look like. So young people have to kind of come to terms with what we want to change, what we need to see change, and unify as a generation. And then I already talked about it once, but I know in Florida at the age of 16, you can pre-register to vote, and I'm sure you can pre-register to vote in other states too. So even if you're not 18 yet, you can prepare yourself to be able to make change in that way. So the more people that let their voices be heard like that, and the more people that pre-register to vote, as soon as you become 18, you are primed to make change in that way.
Just really going off of what everyone else has said, if you don't yet have a Safe Promise Club, start one at your school. And I think the number one thing after that is recruit a really passionate group of students who will kind of, make up the framework of that club. They will support you in your endeavors. And then I would say first thing is educate yourselves. Learn about learn about if your school already has any hotlines. Learn about, what policies are in place as far as carrying arms in your community goes. Learn about the community you live in, learn about the issue. And then from then on, I would say, sort of pick an issue in specific. Let's say your school, you guys don't have a crisis line, you don't have an anonymous tip center. Make that your goal. And so, first recruit teachers and sort of just branch out from there, recruit teachers, recruit administration, reach out to parents. And from then on, you can reach out to the community, maybe city council. And so I think one of the big things that I personally have learned is that as frustrating as it is sometimes, the goal with our Safe Promise clubs is ripples, not waves. It is all of our actions that will make a wave, but sometimes you just got to start small. And that might very well just be starting with your group of 12, 20 individuals and just learning about what states have background checks? Does my community have background checks, etc. And so, yeah, I think it really is the littlest things that go far. And I think one of the other big things is, I think it's a lot about maintaining momentum. I think when events like this happen, we all get understandably, we all get upset. The thing is, we don't maintain that. We don't maintain that same passion. And I feel like a lot of it is just consistent work. Don't speak up just when these events happen. Continue speaking up, continuing remembering these kids. And yeah, that's all I've got.
Thank you all so much. So for all of you who are listening in today, you've had the opportunity to hear, you've had the opportunity to listen to young people. And the one common theme I think you've heard from everybody is that now is the time for action. And there are multiple avenues, there are multiple on-ramps, there are multiple ways to get involved with Sandy Hook Promise, with your community in the area that resonates the most with you. The most important thing is whatever action you choose, remember that taking action at all is the most important thing you can do right now. It is one way that we can turn tragedy into a moment of change, as you've heard from our young leaders here today. So it's critical that you join the movement and be part of the solution so that, as Yuthi said, we can keep up the momentum and make sure that we're not just reacting in these moments of terrible tragedy, but that we're acting consistently to prevent the next one from happening. So we're gonna pop a couple of actions onto the screen here in a minute. If you have a phone, you can take out your phone's camera and scan that QR code, and you will get direct links to take each of these actions right now, and spread those actions really easily with the folks who you are engaged with as well. One is to contact your legislators. As you've heard, there are solutions on the table right now, and we know that the Senate needs to act in order to move them. You can help pressure them to make decisions that support student safety and support some of the policies that the panelists have spoken about today. Second, many of you have heard about learning the warning signs and building awareness around the warning signs. We know that warning signs exist and that in many of these tragedies and shootings, warning signs are exhibited ahead of time. When people know about them and know how to take action, we can save lives. If you're an adult, take the next step to become a trusted adult and empower upstanders so that you can create that inclusive community that knows how to recognize the signs and how to take action. Third, every single one of our speakers here today has probably encouraged you to start or join a Save Promise Club. Again, that's Students Against Violence Everywhere, a national network of thousands of clubs across the country who are actively working to prevent violence in their schools, in their classrooms, and through their communities. Youth leadership is more important than ever, and it continues to be important. So make sure that your school and community has space for young people to lead the call for change, and we have the resources and support to provide for you. Organize your school and your community. Sandy Hook Promise Action Fund has launched a Voices for Change series on key violence prevention issues. If you're a young person looking to take inclusive action that spreads awareness, start with one of these action kits and get the conversation started. As you've heard, starting with yourself, educating yourself and the folks around you is one of the most important ways that we can create an educated generation of change makers. Lastly, start communicating about gun violence. If you're an adult, Sandy Hook Promise has created resources for you to engage in empathetic conversations about gun violence and gun violence prevention with the young people in your life. We know that this is preventable. We know that all of us working together will make this happen. We want to make sure that we're having the conversations so that we can remove the stigma and taboo and really start working on a solution together. So that brings us now to the end of our town hall and the end of our program. I'd like to thank all of our incredible panelists here for being here. Again, a busy time of year for those who are in school, a long weekend, and they really stepped up to the plate to make this happen and to make sure that their voices were heard. We're incredibly grateful for them. Thank you, of course, to our audience for joining. We are really thrilled that you were able to make time for this. We know it's an important issue. Again, whether you're an adult, young person, anywhere in between, you have something to take away from this, and we want you to remember the calls to action that you've heard here today. You have here an opportunity to reach out to us. advocacy@sandyhookpromise.org is the best place to go if you have questions or if you have follow-up actions that you need from us. We're happy to help with any of these. Sandy Hook Promise has supports for every single one of these actions that we have provided. So you're in good hands if you're looking for a way to get involved. We hope you'll join us in taking action. And with that, I'll let you all have the rest of your afternoons and evenings back. Please take care, be safe, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you all.